The morning sun barely broke through the thick fog rolling across the naval base in Coronado, California. Inside the temporary barracks, a group of seasoned sailors gathered around the coffee machine, their voices carrying across the room with the easy confidence of men who had served together for years. They were an elite unit, handpicked for a classified mission that would take them deep into hostile territory within weeks. "Did you hear about our new commander?" Jackson spoke first, his tone dripping with skepticism. He was a broad-shouldered man with 15 years of service under his belt, someone who had earned his stripes through countless operations. "Word is they're sending someone from the Special Warfare Division." Martinez leaned against the wall, arms crossed over his chest. "About time we got some real leadership. Last commander couldn't tell the difference between a tactical insertion and a grocery run." The others chuckled, nodding in agreement. Thompson, the youngest of the group but still a veteran of 3 tours, scrolled through his phone. "I'm trying to find info on this person. Name's Commander Reeves. Can't find much in the database, though." "Reeves?" Jackson raised an eyebrow. "That's it? No first name, no service photos? That's strange for someone supposedly leading a SEAL unit." The group exchanged puzzled looks. In the military, especially at their level, information flowed freely among those with the right clearance. The fact that their new commander's profile seemed scrubbed clean was unusual, to say the least. "Maybe it's some old-timer they're pulling out of retirement," suggested Davis, a communications expert who prided himself on knowing everyone worth knowing in the naval special warfare community. "Someone who operated back when they kept things more classified," Martinez snorted. "Great. So we're getting some fossil who probably hasn't seen real action since Desert Storm. Just what we need for a mission like this." The truth was, they were nervous. The mission brief they'd received was unlike anything they'd encountered before. They would be operating in a region where American forces had limited support, facing an enemy that had proven ruthless and unpredictable. They needed a commander who could think fast, adapt quickly, and had the kind of experience that only came from surviving impossible situations. "I heard from a buddy in logistics," Thompson said, looking up from his phone, "that Commander Reeves specifically requested our unit. Apparently reviewed all our service records personally." "Well, that's something at least," Jackson admitted. "Shows they're taking this seriously. But I still don't like going into a mission blind about who's leading us." The conversation drifted to other topics, but an undercurrent of anxiety remained. In the military, trust was everything. These men had fought together, bled together, and saved each other's lives more times than they could count. Accepting a new commander meant placing that trust in someone unknown, someone who would hold their lives in their hands. 3 days later, the unit assembled in the briefing room. It was a sparse space with gray walls, a large screen at the front, and rows of chairs that had seen better days. The men filed in, taking their usual seats, their conversations subdued. They wore their standard uniforms, freshly pressed for the occasion of meeting their new leader. "Tenhut." The call came from Lieutenant Barnes, their executive officer, as footsteps echoed in the hallway. The door opened, and the room fell into a different kind of silence. The figure that entered wasn't what any of them expected. Commander Reeves stood at average height, with a lean, athletic build that spoke of countless hours of rigorous training. But what caught everyone off guard was that Commander Reeves was a woman. She walked to the front of the room with purposeful strides, her uniform immaculate, her bearing radiating quiet authority. Her hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, and her eyes swept across the assembled sailors with an intensity that made several of them shift in their seats. "At ease," she said, her voice clear and commanding without being loud. "I'm Commander Sarah Reeves, and I'll be leading this unit for the upcoming operation." The shock in the room was palpable. Jackson's jaw had gone slightly slack. Martinez looked like he'd been slapped. Thompson's eyes were wide with disbelief. These were men who had trained with female sailors before, who had served alongside women in various capacities, but a female Navy SEAL commander was something else entirely. The SEAL program had only recently opened to women, and the attrition rate was astronomical. The training was designed to break people, to push them beyond what they thought were their physical and mental limits. Very few men made it through, and even fewer women had attempted the pipeline. "I know what you're thinking," Commander Reeves continued, her gaze steady. "And I'm going to address the elephant in the room right now. Yes, I'm a woman. Yes, I'm a Navy SEAL. And yes, I've earned every single qualification that allows me to stand in front of you today." She clicked a remote, and the screen behind her lit up with an image of a younger version of herself, barely recognizable, covered in mud during what was clearly Hell Week, the notorious phase of SEAL training where candidates are pushed to their absolute breaking point. "I completed Bud S 7 years ago," she said, using the acronym for Basic Underwater Demolition, SEAL Training. "I was the third woman to make it through the entire pipeline. Since then, I've conducted operations in 4 different theaters, earned 2 Bronze Stars, and led teams in situations that most people only see in movies." The room remained silent, but the quality of that silence had changed. The men were listening now, really listening, though skepticism still lingered in many eyes. "I didn't ask for this assignment to make history or prove a point," Commander Reeves said, her tone softening slightly. "I asked for it because the mission we're about to undertake requires someone with my specific skill set and experience. I've operated in the region where we're headed. I know the terrain, the enemy, and what it takes to get everyone home alive." She paused, letting her words sink in. "I'm not here to be your friend. I'm not here to make you comfortable. I'm here to lead this mission successfully, and that means pushing you harder than you've ever been pushed before. If you have a problem with that, if you can't follow orders from a female commander, there's the door. I'll have you transferred before the day is out." Nobody moved. Whatever their personal feelings, these were professional sailors who understood the chain of command. But in the back of the room, Jackson exchanged a glance with Martinez that spoke volumes. They weren't convinced, not yet. The first week under Commander Reeves's leadership felt like being thrown back into basic training, except 10 times harder. She had them running drills before sunrise, conducting tactical exercises that pushed their skills to the limit, and reviewing mission protocols until the details were burned into their memory. Every mistake was caught, every shortcut was called out, and every assumption was challenged. "Move faster, Martinez," Commander Reeves shouted across the training field as they practiced building clearance techniques. In the real situation, that hesitation would have gotten Thompson killed. Martinez gritted his teeth but said nothing. He was used to being among the best, and having his performance picked apart by someone he still didn't fully respect stung more than he wanted to admit. In the barracks that evening, the grumbling reached new heights. Jackson sat on his bunk, nursing a sore shoulder from the day's exercises. "She's trying to prove something," he muttered to the others gathered around. "Running us into the ground just to show she can. My time on the obstacle course today was 30 seconds slower than my personal best," Davis complained. 30 seconds, because she had us wearing full combat load plus an extra 20 pounds of gear. What's the point of that? Thompson, however, remained quiet. He'd been watching Commander Reeves carefully all week, and something didn't add up with the narrative his teammates were building. During the building clearance exercise, he'd noticed how she moved through spaces with an efficiency that came from real experience, not just training. Her tactical calls were sound, often brilliant, and she seemed to anticipate problems before they occurred. "Did any of you actually look at what she's teaching us?" Thompson finally spoke up. "That room-clearing technique she showed us today? That's not standard procedure. It's something you'd only learn from actual field experience." "So what?" Martinez shot back. "Doesn't mean she needs to treat us like we're fresh recruits. We've all seen combat. We know what we're doing. Do we, though?" Thompson challenged. "When's the last time any of us operated in the kind of environment we're heading into?" She said she's been there. Maybe instead of complaining, we should be paying attention. The others exchanged uncomfortable looks. Thompson had a point, but pride was a difficult thing to swallow, especially for men who had spent years building their reputations as elite operators. The following day brought a new challenge. Commander Reeves had arranged for a full mission simulation in the training facility's Mocktown, a realistic urban environment used for practicing combat operations. The unit would have to infiltrate, locate a high-value target, and extract without being detected or engaged by the opposing force, played by another SEAL team. "This is your chance to show me what you can do," Commander Reeves told them during the briefing. "I'll be observing from the command center, but the tactical decisions on the ground are yours. Jackson, you have operational command for this exercise." Jackson felt a surge of satisfaction. Finally, a chance to show this commander what his team was really capable of without her micromanaging every move. The exercise began at dusk. Jackson led his team through the Mocktown's outskirts, using shadows and cover to avoid the roving patrols. Their movements were smooth, coordinated through years of working together. They reached the target building without incident, and Jackson felt confident they'd execute a flawless extraction. But then everything went wrong. As they breached the building, they triggered an alarm they hadn't detected. The opposing force converged on their position from multiple directions. What should have been a quick in-and-out operation turned into a desperate firefight, with simulation rounds flying from every angle. "Fall back to the secondary exit," Jackson ordered, but as they moved, they found it blocked. The opposing force had predicted their retreat and cut them off. "We're pinned down," Martinez shouted from behind a concrete barrier as simulated enemy fire kept them locked in place. Jackson's mind raced. They needed a way out, but every option seemed blocked. Years of training told him to fight through, to use force to create an opening. But something made him pause. This wasn't just an exercise to test their skills. Commander Reeves had set this up for a reason. Over the radio, her voice came through calm and steady. "Jackson, what's your assessment?" He swallowed his pride. "We're trapped, Commander. 3 exits covered. Enemy force superior numbers, and we missed something in our initial reconnaissance." "What did you miss?" Jackson closed his eyes, replaying their approach in his mind. Then it hit him. "The rooftop access. We assumed it was sealed, but we didn't verify." "Correct. You had 10 minutes before the enemy established their perimeter. That was your window." "What else?" "The alarm system. We used standard countermeasures, but this region has different technology." "Also correct. Anything else?" Jackson thought harder. "Our extraction point. We chose the closest one, but not the safest one." "Good. Now, if this were real, your team would likely be captured or killed. What would you do differently?" The question hung in the air. Jackson could have made excuses, could have blamed equipment or intelligence, but Commander Reeves had made him see the truth. They'd been overconfident, relying on old playbooks for a new situation. "Everything," he finally admitted. "We'd approach everything differently." The simulation ended, and the team gathered in the debriefing room. The mood was somber. These men weren't used to failure, and the exercise had been a harsh wake-up call. Commander Reeves stood before them, her expression serious but not unkind. "That simulation was based on a real operation I conducted 2 years ago in the exact region where we're heading. My team made the same mistakes you did, but we didn't have the luxury of simulation rounds. We lost a good man because I didn't properly account for the differences in enemy tactics and technology." The room felt even quieter now. This wasn't just a lesson in tactics. It was personal. "I'm not running you hard because I enjoy it," she continued. "I'm preparing you for an environment that doesn't forgive mistakes. The enemy we're facing is smart, well-equipped, and fighting on their home ground. If we go in thinking we can rely on our standard procedures, we will fail. And failure means people don't come home." She looked at each of them in turn. "I need you to trust me, not because of my rank, not because regulations say you have to, but because I have been where we're going and I know what it takes to survive. Can you do that?" For the first time since Commander Reeves arrived, Jackson felt his skepticism begin to crack. This wasn't someone trying to prove a point or pushing an agenda. This was a combat veteran trying to keep her team alive. "Yes, ma'am," he said, and was surprised to hear the others echo his response with genuine conviction. Commander Reeves nodded. "Good. Because starting tomorrow, we're going to tear apart everything you think you know and rebuild it from scratch. It's going to be the hardest training of your lives. But when we step off that transport in the mission area, you'll be ready for anything." As the team filed out of the debriefing room, Thompson caught up with Jackson. "Still think she's just trying to prove something?" Jackson shook his head slowly. "No, I think she's trying to save our lives." The transformation didn't happen overnight, but it happened. Over the following weeks, Commander Reeves systematically broke down the team's assumptions and rebuilt their capabilities for the specific mission ahead. She brought in intelligence analysts who had worked in the target region, cultural advisors who understood local customs and behaviors, and technical specialists who trained them on the enemy's communication systems and tactics. Martinez found himself partnered with Commander Reeves during a navigation exercise through unfamiliar terrain that mimicked their destination. They had to reach a series of checkpoints using only minimal equipment, avoiding simulated enemy patrols, and maintaining radio silence. "Tell me about your previous deployments," Commander Reeves said as they crouched behind a rocky outcrop, studying the path ahead. Martinez was surprised by the personal question. 3 tours in the Middle East, ma'am. Mostly direct action missions, some training local forces. Did you ever work with female soldiers in those local forces? He thought about it. A few times, yes. They were tough. Had to be to serve in those environments. What was the biggest challenge they faced? Martinez understood where this was going, but he answered honestly. Getting their male counterparts to take them seriously, even when they were more qualified. Commander Reeves nodded, her eyes still scanning the terrain. And did you take them seriously? Eventually, yes. After I saw what they could do. That's all I ask of anyone, she said simply. Judge me by what I do, not by what you assume I can't do. They moved forward together, and Martinez noticed how Commander Reeves read the landscape. She spotted signs of recent passage that he had missed, identified the most efficient routes, and seemed to have an instinct for where threats might emerge. By the time they completed the exercise, his respect for her had grown significantly. Back at the base, word began to spread about Commander Reeves beyond their unit. Other sailors heard about the female SEAL commander, and reactions varied wildly. Some were supportive, others skeptical, and a few openly hostile. One evening in the mess hall, a group of sailors from a different unit made comments loud enough to be heard across the room. Can't believe they're letting women into the teams now, one of them said with a sneer. What's next, kindergarten field trips to combat zones? Thompson, who was getting food with Davis, felt his jaw tighten. Before he could respond, Commander Reeves herself walked into the mess hall. She'd clearly heard the comment but showed no reaction. She simply got her meal and sat down at a table by herself, eating quietly while reviewing a tablet full of mission documents. The sailor who had made the comment, emboldened by her lack of response, decided to push further. He walked over to her table with his friends following behind. Excuse me, Commander, he said with mock politeness. Me and my buddies were wondering, do they make special equipment for Lady SEALs? You know, like pink flippers or something? His friends laughed, expecting an outburst or for Commander Reeves to retreat. Instead, she looked up from her tablet with an expression of mild interest. No special equipment, she said calmly. We use the same gear as everyone else. Although I did notice during my last dive that the standard issue fins perform better when you actually know how to use them properly. Based on your build and the way you're standing, I'd guess you probably struggled with the underwater navigation course during your training. Am I right? The sailor's smirk faltered. What's that got to do with anything? Just an observation. I've trained dozens of candidates, and I can usually tell who barely passed and who excelled. You've got the stance of someone who compensates for poor swimming technique with upper body strength. It works, but it's inefficient. Burns twice the oxygen for half the distance. She returned to her tablet, the dismissal clear. The sailor stood there for a moment, his face reddening before his friends pulled him away, their laughter now directed at him instead of her. Thompson caught Commander Reeves's eye from across the mess hall and saw the briefest hint of a smile before she returned to her work. The woman didn't just have physical skills and tactical knowledge. She knew how to handle herself in every situation. As the mission date approached, the intensity of training increased. Commander Reeves introduced scenarios that seemed almost impossible. She had them conducting operations while exhausted, making critical decisions under extreme stress and adapting to constantly changing conditions. At first, the team struggled and failed repeatedly, but slowly, they began to succeed. One particularly grueling exercise involved a 72-hour continuous operation where they had to complete multiple objectives while dealing with equipment failures, changing intel and simulated casualties. By the end, everyone was running on fumes, but they'd successfully completed every task. During the debriefing, Commander Reeves looked at her exhausted team with something approaching approval. That was good work. You adapted, communicated, and supported each other even when everything went wrong. That's exactly what I needed to see. Jackson, his voice hoarse from 3 days of operations, asked the question on everyone's mind. Commander, will the actual mission be harder than what we just did? She met his gaze steadily. Honestly, probably. But now I know you can handle it. The honesty was refreshing. She didn't sugarcoat things or offer false comfort. She told them the truth and trusted them to be professional enough to handle it. That evening, the team gathered in the barracks, and the conversation had changed dramatically from those early days. Remember when we thought she was trying to prove something? Davis said with a tired laugh. Turns out we were the ones who needed to prove we could keep up. Martinez nodded in agreement. I'll admit it, I was wrong about her. Dead wrong. She's one of the best commanders I've ever served under. Thompson, who had been defending Commander Reeves from the start, felt vindicated but kept it to himself. The question is, are we ready for what's coming? Jackson looked around at his teammates, seeing the same determination in their eyes that he felt. Yeah, I think we are. And I think we're lucky to have her leading us. The comment would have been unthinkable a month ago, but now it was the simple truth. Commander Sarah Reeves had taken a group of skeptical, overconfident sailors and forged them into something better. She'd earned their respect not by demanding it, but by demonstrating competence, experience, and a genuine commitment to their success and survival. As they prepared for sleep, each man knew that the real test was still ahead. They would be deploying into hostile territory within days, facing an enemy that had proven dangerous and unpredictable. But they also knew they had a commander who understood the mission better than anyone, who had walked through fire and come out the other side, and who would do everything in her power to bring them all home. The jokes and skepticism that had filled the barracks in those early days were gone, replaced by quiet confidence and trust. Commander Reeves had transformed not just their tactical skills but their mindset, and that transformation might be the difference between success and failure when bullets started flying for real. The transport helicopter cut through the night sky, its engines creating a rhythmic thunder that made conversation impossible without headsets. Inside the cargo bay, Commander Reeves and her team sat in full combat gear, weapons secured, faces painted with camouflage patterns that would help them blend into the rocky terrain of their destination. This was it. All the training, all the preparation, all the doubts and transformations had led to this moment. Through her headset, Commander Reeves ran through final checks with each team member. Jackson confirmed his squad's readiness. Martinez reported communications equipment fully operational. Davis verified their exfiltration coordinates. Thompson double-checked weapons and ammunition counts. Everything was ready. Yet Commander Reeves felt the familiar tension that came before every real operation. Training could simulate many things, but it couldn't replicate the knowledge that mistakes would cost lives. 5 minutes to insertion. The pilot's voice crackled through the headsets. Commander Reeves looked at each of her team members, seeing the focus in their eyes. They were ready. More than that, they trusted her and she trusted them. That mutual confidence would be their greatest weapon in what was to come. The helicopter descended rapidly, following the terrain to avoid radar detection. They were inserting into a mountainous region, controlled by a hostile force that had been disrupting regional stability for months. Intelligence indicated a high-value target was operating from a compound in the area, and the team's mission was to locate, confirm, and if possible, capture this individual. It was the kind of operation that required precision, stealth, and the ability to adapt when things inevitably went wrong. The helicopter touched down briefly, just long enough for the team to disembark before lifting off again, disappearing into the night sky. Suddenly the world was quiet except for the wind whistling through the rocks and the team's controlled breathing. Commander Reeves signaled, and they moved out in formation, each person knowing their role. They had a 6-kilometer trek to their initial observation point, and they needed to complete it before dawn. The terrain was exactly as harsh as she'd warned them, loose rocks and steep inclines that tested their conditioning with every step. But the team moved efficiently, their training evident in how they navigated obstacles and maintained security. 3 hours into the movement, Thompson, who was on point, raised his fist in the signal to stop. Everyone froze. Through hand signals, he indicated movement ahead. Commander Reeves moved forward to assess the situation, her movement silent despite the loose terrain. 2 figures were ahead, armed sentries that intelligence hadn't predicted would be this far from the compound. They were positioned exactly where the team needed to pass. Commander Reeves studied the situation carefully. They could neutralize the guards, but bodies would be discovered eventually, compromising the mission. They could try to bypass, but the terrain offered limited alternatives, all of which would cost them precious time. She made a decision and signaled the team. They would wait. It wasn't the aggressive choice, but it was the smart one. For the next 40 minutes, they remained motionless as the guards completed their patrol pattern and moved on. Only then did the team proceed, reaching their observation point just as the first hints of dawn colored the eastern horizon. From their concealed position, they had a clear view of the compound below. It was larger than intelligence had suggested, with more guards and better fortifications. Commander Reeves photographed everything, noting defensive positions, patrol patterns, and potential entry and exit points. This wasn't just about completing the mission. It was about gathering intelligence that could inform future operations. "Commander, we've got a problem," Davis whispered, studying his equipment. "Radio chatter is indicating increased activity. Something's got them stirred up." Commander Reeves listened to the intercepted communications, her knowledge of the local language allowing her to understand the urgent tones. Her expression tightened. "They're searching for something. Or someone. Us?" Martinez asked. "Can't be sure, but we need to assume our window is closing faster than planned." Over the next several hours, they observed the compound, waiting for their target to show himself. The intelligence had indicated he would be there, but confirmation was essential. The team remained in position, exposed to the elements, unable to move, barely able to speak. This was the unglamorous reality of special operations. Long periods of uncomfortable waiting punctuated by moments of intense action. As afternoon approached, Martinez spotted movement. "Commander, possible target emerging from the main building." Commander Reeves trained her optics on the figure. Even from this distance, she could match the features to the photographs they'd studied. "That's him." "Davis?" "Confirm identity through facial recognition." Davis worked quickly with his portable equipment, cross-referencing the image with their database. "Positive match." High confidence. "That's our target." Now came the difficult decision. The original plan called for a nighttime raid, but the increased enemy activity and the target's presence created an opportunity. Commander Reeves weighed the options. A daylight operation was riskier, but if they waited until night, the target might move or the heightened security could make the mission impossible. "Jackson, assessment on daylight approach?" she asked. Jackson studied the compound through his scope. "Possible, but tight. We'd need to move fast and extraction would be hot." "Martinez, communications?" "We can maintain contact, but jamming their frequencies will alert them immediately. We'd have maybe 5 minutes before they organize a response." Commander Reeves processed the information quickly. Every instinct told her to wait for darkness to follow the plan. But experience also told her that opportunities in combat were fleeting, and sometimes the bold choice was the right choice. "We're going now," she decided. "Martinez, on my signal, jam their communications. Jackson, your squad takes the front approach. Thompson, you're with me on the secondary entry. Davis maintains overwatch and coordinates extraction." "Questions?" There were none. The team trusted her judgment completely. "Check your gear. We move in 10 minutes. The next 10 minutes felt like an hour as each team member prepared mentally and physically for what was coming. Commander Reeves ran through the plan one final time in her mind, identifying potential problems and backup solutions. She couldn't account for everything, but she could prepare for most contingencies. When the time came, they moved with practiced precision down from their observation point. The approach required them to cross open ground, but they used the terrain's natural features for concealment. Martinez's jamming equipment activated, and immediately, confused voices could be heard from the compound as their communications went dead. Jackson's squad reached the front entrance first, using breaching charges to blow the gate. The explosion shattered the afternoon quiet, and suddenly everything was chaos. Guards scrambled to respond, but the team was already inside, moving with devastating efficiency. Commander Reeves and Thompson entered through a side building, clearing rooms with practiced speed. They encountered 2 guards who reached for weapons, but the team neutralized them with precise shots before they could raise an alarm. Every second counted now. "Target located, 2nd floor, northwest corner." Jackson reported through the radio. Commander Reeves and Thompson redirected, moving through corridors filled with confused and panicking occupants. They reached the stairs as gunfire erupted below, Jackson's squad engaging with compound defenders. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space, but training overcame fear. They reached the 2nd floor and found Jackson's squad stacked outside a reinforced door. Commander Reeves evaluated the situation quickly. The door was heavy, designed to withstand exactly this kind of assault. Breaching it would take time they didn't have. "Davis, status on extraction?" she called. "Helicopters inbound, ETA 6 minutes, but enemy reinforcements are mobilizing. You've got maybe 10 minutes before this position becomes untenable. 6 minutes for extraction, but it would take at least 3 to breach this door. Possibly more." The math wasn't working. Commander Reeves looked around, her mind racing through alternatives. Then she noticed something. The walls were concrete, but the floor was wood, likely sitting on beams. "Change of plans," she said. "We're going through the floor." The decision was unconventional, but Commander Reeves saw what others might have missed. They moved quickly to the room directly below the target's location. Jackson placed shaped charges on the ceiling in a precise pattern, while the rest of the team maintained security, holding off the increasing number of defenders trying to reach their position. "Charges set," Jackson reported. "This is going to be loud." "Everyone clear the blast radius," Commander Reeves ordered. "On my mark." The explosion ripped through the floor above, creating a hole large enough for entry. Before the dust settled, Commander Reeves and Thompson were already moving up through the opening, weapons ready. The target was there, disoriented by the blast but reaching for a weapon on a nearby table. "Don't move," Commander Reeves commanded in his language. The authority in her voice stopped him mid-reach. Thompson secured the target while Commander Reeves cleared the rest of the room. It was filled with documents, computer equipment, and communication devices. Even better than capturing the target alone, they'd found his operational headquarters. "Davis, we have the target and the intelligence goldmine. How's our time?" Commander Reeves asked. "Extraction helicopters landing in 2 minutes, but you've got company converging from all sides. You need to move now." Martinez appeared in the doorway, slightly out of breath. "Routes to the front courtyard are blocked. We've got hostiles coming up the stairs." Commander Reeves made another split-second decision. "Roof access. Jackson, find me a way up." The team moved as one, half pulling security while the others searched for roof access. They found a narrow stairwell that led upward. With the target secured between them, they climbed quickly, the sounds of pursuit growing closer. Gunfire echoed through the building as the enemy forces closed in. They burst onto the roof just as the extraction helicopters appeared on the horizon, their distinctive silhouettes against the afternoon sky like the most beautiful sight any of them had ever seen. But they weren't safe yet. From their elevated position, they could see enemy forces pouring into the compound from multiple directions. "Davis, we're on the roof. Can the birds reach us here?" Commander Reeves called. "They're trying, but taking fire from the ground. The landing zone is too hot." Commander Reeves surveyed the situation. The helicopters were circling, unable to land safely while ground fire continued. They were trapped on the roof with a captured target, surrounded by an increasingly organized enemy force. In moments, those enemy fighters would breach the roof access door behind them. This was the crisis point where leadership mattered most. The team looked to Commander Reeves, and she could see the trust in their eyes even as the situation deteriorated around them. They believed she would find a way out because she always had before. Her mind raced through options. Then she remembered something from the intelligence briefings, a detail about the compound's design that others might have overlooked. "Thompson, you see that tower, 50 meters east?" She pointed to a communications tower rising from an adjacent building. "Yes, ma'am." "Can you make that shot to take it down?" Thompson understood immediately. If the tower fell correctly, it would create a bridge between their building and the lower structure beside it, giving them an escape route away from the enemy's main approach. It was a long shot, literally and figuratively, but it was their best option. "I can try," Thompson said, already setting up his rifle for the shot. "Martinez, smoke grenades. Cover the roof and our descent route. Jackson, prepare for emergency extraction from the secondary building." The team moved into action. Thompson steadied his breathing, calculating wind, distance, and the structural weakness points of the tower. He fired 3 precise shots at the tower's base support struts. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a groan of metal, the tower began to tilt. "Move, move, move!" Commander Reeves ordered as the tower crashed down, creating exactly the bridge she'd envisioned. Smoke grenades deployed, filling the air with concealing clouds as the team ran across the fallen tower. It swayed beneath their weight but held. The captured target was in the middle, flanked by operators ensuring he couldn't escape or be recaptured. Behind them, enemy forces breached the roof they'd just abandoned. But the smoke and distance made their fire inaccurate. They reached the lower building and quickly moved to its courtyard, which provided better cover and a clearer landing zone. Davis coordinated with the helicopter pilots, marking their position with an infrared beacon visible only through their night vision equipment, even in daylight. 30 seconds, Davis called out. The team formed a defensive perimeter around the target, returning fire against enemy forces who were now trying to reach their new position. The air was thick with smoke, the noise of gunfire constant, and the tension was at breaking point. This was the moment when training either held or failed completely. Commander Reeves saw Martinez take a round to his body armor, knocking him backward. She moved to him immediately while Thompson covered their position. "You good?" Martinez coughed, struggling for breath. "Yeah, just knocked the wind out." "Keep going." The helicopters descended rapidly, their door gunners providing suppressing fire that forced the enemy to take cover. The first helicopter touched down just long enough for half the team and the target to board, before lifting off under heavy fire. The second helicopter landed moments later for the rest of the team. Commander Reeves was the last to board, providing cover fire for her team until everyone was aboard. As the helicopter lifted away, she could see enemy forces converging on their former position, firing upward but unable to reach them. The mission, against all odds, had succeeded. Inside the helicopter, the team caught their breath. Martinez was being checked by the medic, confirming that his armor had stopped the round and he had no serious injuries beyond severe bruising. The captured target sat secured, his face a mixture of shock and resignation. Around them, the team began to process what they'd just accomplished. Jackson looked at Commander Reeves with newfound respect that went even deeper than before. "That tower shot using it as a bridge, I never would have thought of that." "Desperation makes you creative," Commander Reeves replied, but Jackson saw the slight smile. She'd been confident it would work, or at least confident enough to bet all their lives on it. Thompson, who had made the crucial shots, simply nodded to her. No words were needed. They'd operated as a perfect team, each person trusting the others completely. That trust had saved all their lives. As they flew toward friendly territory, Commander Reeves allowed herself a moment of relief. The mission wasn't over until they were safely back at base, but the hardest part was behind them. She looked at her team. These men who had started as skeptics and doubters but had become something far more valuable. True teammates who judged her by her actions and leadership, rather than their preconceptions. Davis moved closer, speaking quietly enough that only she could hear over the helicopter noise. "Commander, that was some of the best tactical thinking I've ever seen in the field. The way you adapted when the situation changed, the tower bridge idea, all of it. Just wanted you to know." "We all adapted," Commander Reeves replied. "That's what makes us a team." Martinez, despite his injury, called out to her. "Hey, Commander, remember that first day when we were all wondering who you were and making jokes?" She nodded, remembering it clearly. "We were idiots," Martinez said with a laugh that the others joined. "Complete idiots." "You weren't idiots," Commander Reeves said. "You were skeptical of something new. That's human nature. What matters is that you were willing to learn and adapt. That's what separates good operators from great ones." The flight back to base took several hours, during which the team began writing their after-action reports mentally, knowing that intelligence officers would want to debrief them immediately upon landing. The captured target and the documents they'd recovered would provide valuable information about enemy operations in the region. When they finally landed at the base, there was a small crowd waiting. Word had already spread about the successful mission, and while operational security prevented details from being widely known, everyone knew that Commander Reeves's team had pulled off something significant. As the team disembarked, still carrying their weapons and gear, a senior officer approached. Captain Morrison had been one of the people who initially questioned the decision to put Commander Reeves in charge of such a critical mission. He'd made his concerns known through official channels, citing the need for experienced male leadership in such a dangerous operation. Now he stood before Commander Reeves and her team, seeing them alive, successful, and clearly operating as a cohesive unit. His expression was complicated, a mixture of relief and something that might have been embarrassment. "Commander Reeves," he said formally, "preliminary reports indicate a successful mission with all personnel accounted for and primary objectives achieved. Well done." "Thank you, sir," Commander Reeves replied, her tone professional. "It was a team effort. Every person here performed exceptionally." Captain Morrison nodded, then lowered his voice slightly. "I owe you an apology, Commander. I had concerns about this assignment, concerns that were clearly unfounded. Your leadership was exactly what this mission required." Commander Reeves met his eyes steadily. "I appreciate that, sir, but I didn't do this to—" 3 weeks after the mission, The team had returned to their normal training rotation while intelligence analysts continued working through the documents and information they'd recovered. The captured target had provided valuable intelligence during questioning, leading to several follow-up operations by other units. The ripple effects of their mission were being felt throughout the region, disrupting enemy operations and saving countless lives. Commander Reeves walked into the training facility one morning to find her team already there, running drills without being ordered to do so. This was the mark of true professionals, operators who maintained their skills not because they had to, but because excellence was simply who they were. She watched them for a few minutes, noting their improved techniques and the seamless way they communicated and moved together. "Commander on deck," Thompson called out when he noticed her and the team came to attention. "As you were," she said. "Don't let me interrupt your training." But Martinez approached her with something in his hand. It was a photograph, one taken by a journalist who had been at the base when they returned from the mission. The image showed the team disembarking from the helicopter, exhausted but triumphant with Commander Reeves in the center. Someone had printed it and the entire team had signed it. "We wanted you to have this," Martinez said, "as a thank you, for everything you taught us and for bringing us all home." Commander Reeves took the photograph, genuinely touched by the gesture. These hardened warriors who had initially doubted her had become not just teammates, but people she trusted with her life. "Thank you. This means more than you know," Jackson stepped forward. "We also wanted to apologize officially. For those first days, for the jokes and the skepticism. We judged you before we knew you, and that was wrong." "You don't need to apologize," Commander Reeves replied. "You weren't the first people to doubt me, and you won't be the last. What matters is that when it counted, you followed orders, you trusted my leadership, and you performed like the elite operators you are. That's all any commander can ask for." Davis spoke up from the back. "We heard through the grapevine that you're being considered for another assignment." "A bigger command," Commander Reeves nodded. "It's possible. Nothing's been decided yet. Will you take it?" Thompson asked. She looked at each of them in turn, these men who had become her team in the truest sense. "I don't know yet. This team, this unit, you've all proven that the best warriors aren't defined by gender or background, but by skill, dedication, and the willingness to trust each other completely. That's rare and it's valuable. But if there's an opportunity to lead more operations to bring more people home safely, I have to consider it." The team understood. They'd all made similar calculations throughout their careers, weighing personal preferences against professional duty. It was part of being in the service. Over the following weeks, something interesting began to happen. Word of Commander Reeves's successful mission spread beyond their immediate circle. Young female recruits who were considering special warfare training began reaching out, asking for advice. Male sailors who had been skeptical of women in combat roles found their assumptions challenged. The conversation was changing, slowly but noticeably. One afternoon, Commander Reeves received a visit from a group of female naval officers who were instructors at various training commands. They wanted to hear about her experiences, about the challenges she'd faced and how she'd overcome them. "The truth is," Commander Reeves told them honestly, "I've had to work twice as hard to be considered half as good in some people's eyes. That's frustrating, but it's also reality. The key is not to let that frustration become bitterness. You prove yourself through actions, not arguments. You maintain standards, you lead by example, and you never give anyone a legitimate reason to doubt your capabilities." One of the visiting officers asked, "But doesn't it bother you that you have to prove yourself over and over again, while men with similar qualifications are simply assumed to be competent?" "Of course it bothers me," Commander Reeves admitted. "But I can't control other people's biases. I can only control my own actions and performance. And honestly, having to prove myself has made me a better operator and a better leader. I don't take anything for granted. I don't coast on reputation. I work hard every single day to be worthy of the trust my team places in me." As the meeting concluded, one of the younger officers stayed behind. "Commander, I'm considering trying out for special warfare training, but I'm scared. Scared of failing, scared of the harassment I might face, scared of letting down everyone who's counting on me to succeed." Commander Reeves recognized that fear. She'd felt it herself before entering the SEAL pipeline. Fear is normal. It means you understand the stakes. But here's what I learned. You're not responsible for representing all women. You're only responsible for being the best operator you can be. Some people will support you. Some will doubt you, and some will actively try to make you fail. None of that matters as much as your own commitment to excellence. If you want this, go after it with everything you have. And if you make it through, you'll have earned your place just like everyone else who succeeds. The conversation reminded Commander Reeves of her own journey. The obstacles she'd overcome and the people who had supported her along the way. She'd had mentors who believed in her potential, commanders who gave her opportunities, and teammates who eventually looked past their biases to see her skills. A month after the mission, the team was called together for a formation. Senior officers were present, and there was a formal atmosphere that suggested something significant was about to happen. Commander Reeves and her team stood at attention, wondering what this was about. A rear admiral stepped forward with a citation. Commander Sarah Reeves, for exceptional leadership and tactical excellence during combat operations in hostile territory, resulting in the successful completion of mission objectives and the safe return of all personnel, you are hereby awarded the Silver Star. The citation continued, detailing the mission and her actions, but Commander Reeves barely heard it. She was thinking about her team, about the trust they'd built, and about the fact that this medal represented not just her actions, but the collective effort of every person who had been on that mission. After the medal was pinned to her uniform, the Admiral shook her hand. Your performance has not gone unnoticed, Commander. We need more leaders like you, people who can adapt, innovate, and bring out the best in their teams. I expect you'll be receiving new orders soon. The formation dismissed, and the team gathered around Commander Reeves, congratulating her. But she deflected the attention back to them. This medal belongs to all of us. Every decision I made was possible because I trusted each of you to execute perfectly. You're the real stars here. Later that evening, the team gathered informally at a local establishment near the base that was popular with military personnel. It was a rare moment of relaxation, a chance to decompress and simply enjoy each other's company without the pressure of missions or training. Jackson raised his glass. To Commander Reeves, the toughest leader we've ever served under, and the one who taught us the most. To Commander Reeves, the others echoed. She smiled, raising her own glass. To this team, you taught me just as much as I taught you. You proved that the best units aren't built on assumptions or biases, but on mutual respect and shared purpose. As the evening wore on, the conversation ranged from serious discussions about future operations to humorous stories about training mishaps. At one point, Martinez brought up those first days when they'd been skeptical and made jokes. I still can't believe we were that stupid, he said, shaking his head. There we were, supposedly elite operators, and we couldn't see past our own biases. Don't be too hard on yourselves, Commander Reeves said. Bias is human nature. What separates good people from bad ones is the willingness to recognize those biases and move past them. You did that. Not everyone does. Thompson, who had been quiet for most of the evening, finally spoke up. You know what I learned from all this? That leadership isn't about being the loudest voice or the most aggressive person. It's about making good decisions under pressure, trusting your team, and having the courage to take unconventional approaches when conventional ones won't work. That's exactly right, Commander Reeves agreed. And it's what I hope more people will learn as the military continues to evolve. The new orders came 2 weeks later. Commander Reeves was being reassigned to a training command where she would help develop the next generation of special warfare operators. It was a promotion and a recognition of her abilities, but it also meant leaving the team she'd built and trained. The farewell was harder than she expected. These men had started as doubters but had become her brothers in arms in the truest sense. They'd faced danger together, trusted each other completely, and proven that excellence knew no gender boundaries. Take care of yourselves, she told them at the final formation. Continue to train hard, look out for each other, and never stop learning. You're some of the finest operators I've ever had the privilege to lead. Jackson spoke for the team. You changed us, Commander. Not just as operators, but as people. We'll carry those lessons forward, and we'll make sure that anyone who joins this unit